welcome back to Brickle. My name is Brittany and today we are doing a review for Shadow in the Cloud. Shadow in the Cloud is an interesting genre match of World War II movies and horror. This story follows Maude Garrett as she goes aboard the Fool's Errand, a plane that is leaving New Zealand during World War II. She's undergoing a top secret mission with a parcel she needs to deliver. However, the men aboard the Fool's Errand don't quite trust her yet and they put her in the Sperry, which is a gun turret attached to the bottom of the plane. While in this turret, she and the crew above must fight against Japanese planes as well as a gremlin.
Nice gremlin. Woo!
I went for an aviator costume and it is way too hot for this jacket today. I went into this movie really knowing very little about it. I kind of had seen trailers on TikTok and read an article because of the backlash of, first of all, the name Maude Garrett, who is an Australian journalist, and then also the backlash that is associated with the original writer, although writer is used very loosely here. I highly recommend you read the article that I put in the description. Now, with that aside, I really want you to go into this movie with fresh eyes because it's actually really good. Stupid, but good. Starting off with the computer graphics, I think the creatures, the gremlins, are designed really well. They're like humanoid bats, and they've got enough mystique at the very start to instill a bit of terror in them. But what really sells these creatures is Chloe Grace Moretz. Her acting is phenomenal in this movie. Her character, for half the length of the story, is really confined to this turret attached to the bottom of the plane. And the interaction between her and the crew above is mostly audio. In saying that, you do catch glimpses of the crew in conversations, how they've created this almost artistic representation of their faces and neon lights, and it's really well done. I really think it's necessary to leave the turret space for a little bit for the audience to get an idea of who these men are. In saying that, I did get lost a couple of times as to who was who, and of course there are deaths and I'm trying to remember who died. It's a bit confusing because you're not with them the whole time, but you do lose them. I mean, there's gonna be deaths, it's a horror movie. Again, I cannot celebrate Chloe Grace Moretz enough. If you read the article as well, you find that she has a bit of claustrophobia. And they filmed in a very tight space. These sorts of little bits of understanding. So I knew more about the production than the actual story itself. So these little bits of knowledge of the production really painted the movie in a very cool light, especially because it was filmed in New Zealand. So I feel really silly for forgetting this and not filming while I was in costume, but the soundtrack, it really is cross-genre. You've got horror, World War II, but the soundtrack is almost as if it's from the 80s. It's a beautiful sounding and visual movie. And I think that's why I really enjoyed it, and I think that's why I really recommend it. Now, we've talked about the CGI, we've talked about the lead actress. The other guys were fine. You really didn't hang around the crew enough to get a sense of their acting. They were there mostly to die. And I mean, that's pretty much what a crew is for horror movies, unfortunately. But going from that, we need to look into the story, and the story is really cool until there's a bit of a release of the information, when you really find out what this top secret mission is about. I'm gonna go into spoiler territory here, so please, if you haven't watched it, jump on out. I don't know how much this spoiler creates the film for other people's viewing, but for me, I think it's very important to discuss. So the top secret mission for her was actually all forged. She stole a uniform, she forged all the documents to get onto that flight because she was running away from an abusive husband with another man's child. That in itself is a very interesting story. However, the father was also on that flight and he had no idea about the baby. That is one point where it stretches a bit too far. With that story element, I couldn't really put reality aside. I felt like it was too coincidental. Going from that, this plane is being shot down by Japanese fighter pilots, and it has a monster on board attacking all of the crew and Chloe's character, Maude. And now a baby, who at one point is suspended hundreds of thousands of feet from the earth, just hanging off the side of the wing, and is saved. This plane is getting shot at by Japanese fighter pilots. Half the crew is dying and the baby isn't hit once. Then the plane crashes. Everyone is bloody. Chloe's got a broken finger from an earlier jaunt. She's been scratched by the monster, she's bruised from the abuse, and the baby is pristine. The main reason why I wanted to go across this spoiler territory is at the very, very end, everyone's won the day, they're bloody, they're gross, they're on this, I don't know where they are, they don't know where they are, and she's picking up the crying baby because the baby's hungry, so she breastfeeds the baby. My initial reaction is, why? I feel like this has just taken away from the crazy fight scene they just had in the shallows of the beach. But it shouldn't. It's a very challenging scene where you watch it and your initial reaction is, oh, why did they go there? But when you think about it, why wouldn't they go there? Of course, this baby needs to be fed. It's an interesting scene to break down. I'm sure film critics will have a field day looking into it, breaking it apart, and dissecting the reasoning behind having it in the film. I think it is a very clever scene because it raises questions of why is that their initial reaction to seeing that on the screen. And I think it will create a very cool discussion point in a lot of film critics' reviews. With that said, I really do highly recommend you watch this movie. I think it's very cleverly shot. It gets your heart racing, it makes you feel very claustrophobic at the start. There's a few hiccups along the way, but you know what, it's still such a thrill of a watch. With that said, thank you so much for watching. My name is Brittany and you have been watching Brick Girl.